Number one is the knowledge. You have to have the knowledge. Number two is the time. And number three is the resource, which is the money.
Hey, Renter Retires, it's Adam Schrader here with another episode, and we are joined today by a real estate investor from Connecticut. His name is Andres Bernal. He is the founder of the Evolve Tennis Training, and we're going to talk about some real estate journey here today. So, Andres, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. So excited and honored to be here, Adam. Thank you.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure. So, I mentioned you're a real estate investor up in Connecticut, but it hasn't always been your life, what you've been doing. So tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you grew up, how you got into investing, and just take us at the beginning of the journey.
Yeah, so I grew up in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Normal family. We were, low to medium income family. My dad is an entrepreneur, has still his own business. And yeah, I grew up in normal household. I started playing tennis when I was 9. I actually hated it the first few times. So my dad insisted. He has a lot of grit, and I fell in love after like the 6th, 7th time. Grew up late. Yeah, played tennis for my country when I was 16, then received a full scholarship when I graduated high school when I was 17, received a full scholarship. And then after college, I decided to give it a try to play professional tennis. So I came here to the U.S. I had one opportunity in a tennis club. They were going to train me for free. It was just, if I make anything in the future, then I'll give him something. But and then after 2 years, I said it's enough. I fell in love with teaching, the rest is history.
Nice. So was the college in the Dominican Republic as well, did you come to the U.S. for that?
Yeah, the college is actually in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
I went to a private school in Puerto Rico, and I had a few options here in the U.S. I have 3 other options in Division I schools, but my scholarship in Puerto Rico was 125%.
Oh, nice.
So. Yeah, I mean, my dad is like, you can take that. Forget about I had some really good colleges that offered me 70, 80%. But, growing up in DR, the whole degree can cost you $5,000. And my dad is like, why you're going to spend $10,000 a year when you can do the whole degree with $5,000 here. So
sounds like an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Why are you spending money over here when you can spend less over here?
Yeah. So yeah.
I love it. So tell us about, you're playing tennis here, your life is kind of focused around sport, and suddenly real estate comes in. How does that start factoring in?
So my journey to real estate, it was actually, I had it in the back of my head my whole life, but I didn't actually start it until I had to. So I was renting here, and my landlord decided to sell the house. So typically me, I'm like, you know what? I'm tired, sick of renting. I want my own place. I want to start doing my own thing. So I decided to buy, and I had a lot of hurdles in order for me to buy because I was on an athlete visa. Basically, they don't want to lend you for a person that is gonna fly the country back in 3 years. So
nice, solid, steady person.
And my credit at that time, my credit was like 780, and I was like an immigrant. I had 2 years in the U.S. at that point. And it was solid. I was making good money. Everything was good, but the visa thing was a hurdle. So we tried 20 banks, and I think like the 22nd, 23rd say yes. And since then, my mind opened. Like there's so much possibility here. There's so much potential, And I started analyzing deals when I bought my own place. I started analyzing deals. I started attending to meetups. I started to network with other investors. Anything that was like for free or low cost, I was doing it. And then, until now, I'm still trying to learn a lot. But my portfolio has grown a lot since then.
So how are you analyzing the deal? I mean, you were buying this property to live in it. What kind of analyzing did you do with that property?
You want the quick 60 seconds, or you want the long one?
Maybe like a 95-second.
Okay, all right. So the way that I analyze the deals right now is I check what is the market rent, let's say for buy and hold, right? I see how much my mortgage is going to be. There's a tons of calculators out there. I happen to have an app where it tells you what the mortgage is going to be. I look at the rent, what is going to be the rent, what is the current rent, and what is the rent that I can charge in that market if I get to fix the house. And then typically I subtract 15 to 20% reserves, and that accounts for vacancy, capital expenditures like the roof or something breaks down. That accounts for property maintenance, and the property management I basically manage my whole portfolio, so I don't pay. But I think it's a good habit to add that as a property management. And then I add things like water, sewer, electricity, all the expenses, trash, all the expenses that account. And then I see if it makes sense. Typically, I don't invest in any property that at least give me a 15% return, and I want to see it from $300 to $400 a month in cash flow. That's my short answer, I'll say.
But what were you doing day one whenever you said you were analyzing your primary residence whenever you first bought it? Surely, I mean, you were what, early to mid 20s at that point? I mean, I can't think of any 24-year-old who's really diving into, investor numbers when they're buying their primary residence.
Yeah, so my thought was for my primary residence, I bought a small condo. I knew how much I could rent it out if I leave, even before I bought it.
Okay.
And then it turns out that I lived there for 2 years and the rent went up. So it made more sense because I have a fixed expense because my mortgage, my taxes, my everything, my insurance was the same, but the rent was higher because it was 2 years after. And in the worst case scenario, the way that I think people should think is like, what is my mortgage payment? Okay, it at that time was like $800, but I was making good money. If the worst case scenario, if I have a vacancy, can I afford to? Do I have the reserves to pay for that $800 for, let's say, a year? And that was my thinking. Like, even if I don't rent it out, I will be okay because I have enough savings. And I will highly suggest to your audience to not get into real estate if you don't have reserves, or if you don't know anyone that have those reserves, because I made that mistakes on my second property and I was fine. But this is something that a lot of people make. It's like, okay, I have $50,000 for the down payment. Okay, so then I'm broke, and then what if something breaks? Then you're toast. Oh.
Yeah, so you've got the one, you're living in one, you've got, you're living there obviously, and in 2 years you move out, start renting that one out. You now have 32 doors, which is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, that's a pretty substantial portfolio you've got going on. So talk a little bit about the initial scaling, like those first few years, because that's where a lot of people get bogged down. Is you're getting one a year, maybe two a year as you're getting started, because you haven't hit that, point where cash out refi makes a ton of sense. You don't, capital is obviously the limiting factor in everything. So talk a little bit about those first few years as you started kind of getting the steamroller going.
So in order for you to scale, let's say that you can only afford to buy one property a year. You have to look of what you're missing. And when I say that, you either missing in real estate investing, I divide this in three parts. Number one is the knowledge. You have to have the knowledge. Number two is the time. And number three is the resource, which is the money, right? So in my case, I had the time, I had the knowledge or some knowledge, right? But I didn't have the money because when you buy a property, like you say, you spend everything in one down payment, right? Pretty much. So I had to get creative. And after the first one, I knew that I could only get buy only one property a year. So I said, how about if I start partnership with people that have the resource that I'm lacking of, which is money. And the second year of investment, I bought 3 properties, and they were all very creative. And we can dig into that if you want, so your audience can maybe use the strategies. But I got really creative with no money down, or very little money down. And after that, everything started snowballing. Why? Because number one, I was house hacking, which I was living in my second property was a 3-family. So I was living in the 3rd unit. I was collecting rent from the 1st and 2nd unit. Even though I was not making technically money every single month, I was saving that $1,300 in rent. So everything starts snowballing. That $1,300 in rent plus my W-2 job plus the cash flow of the properties that I bought. And actually investing gets easier now than those first, I would say, 3 years.
Yeah. So you've got that going up. You're also going to the meetups that you talked about. How did you decide who to, approach for partnering on a deal? Because that can be intimidating. You're there, you're at a meeting, and you say, "Oh, I see Andres all the time, but now I have to go up to him, and he's the guy I'm going to ask for money to partner with me on a deal." How did you pick your partners?
So in order for you to go to the meetup, my best advice is just be honest. Say, hey, listen, I am new to this game. I'm willing to learn. I don't know that much about real estate, or I know how to analyze real estate, and just put your honesty up front. Every time that I go to these meetups, I still go. I talk in a few of them now. I've been lucky enough and fortunate, but every time that I go, I see this guy or gal. Oh, I have this amount of doors, and I've done this. Or every time that you say something like, I don't even like to say that I have 32 doors. In my meetups, I never said that because I want everybody to see me with the same eyes. But every time that I see somebody brag about, and then they told me that they want to partner with me, I'm like, you don't have to brag about yourself in order to partner with me. If you are more honest and upfront about, the things that you have and the things that you're lacking of, I will be more willing to partner than you telling me how many units. There's a lot of people that this is a big mistake that people do, is that they always counter who they're talking about. So like, let's say that you get a mortgage, you're very excited, you bought your first property, and there's always this person that tells you, oh, but I got a better rate, or I got a better deal, or I'm doing this, or laughs at what you're doing. And that is a big mistake. So just be honest, be upfront. I'm gonna tell you a quick story, Adam. This guy I meet up, he was new to real estate, and he said, let's sit for coffee. I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. At that time, I didn't mind. But then 2 years later, this guy sold me a really good deal that we're gonna net 60,000 on a flip.
Nice.
2 years later, and this guy didn't know anything about real estate, anything. And because I built that relationship, and because I was upfront and not brag about like this and that, this guy got so good at analyzing deals. He took all the information. He made 50. I'm gonna make 60. It's a win-win for everyone. So yeah,
worthwhile cup of coffee.
Yeah. My $2 got better.
Fantastic. So I can't agree with you more. I mean, I don't go to a ton of meetups, but I do remember I've been to some conferences, and there was one time we were sitting around at lunch, and this guy just kept talking on and on about markets and opportunities and this, that, and the other. And then I found out during the conversation, he doesn't actually own a property yet. And I was like, why are you dominating this conversation whenever you don't have a property and you're talking to a table full of real estate investors. Like, sit back, absorb the knowledge, then go out and implement it.
Right, right. So Adam, so let's say that I would be brand new to this game. Now I'm asking you, I would be you go to the meetup and you go brand new where there's people there is that have some experience investing and there's some new people. What will be the best approach?
For me to meet people,
Yeah, let's say that you're brand new.
oh, I would just be going around asking people, like, how they were finding deals, kind of how they got started. Because I mean, that's where I was. I would be asking them about kind of like, hey, what are you doing now, and how can I follow your footsteps in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The other tip I just added to what you said. I have created so much value to other people, but I haven't asked to create value. I just created it, and there's a difference on that. Let me explain. So a lot of people approach me on Instagram. I have at least 2 to 3, which I'm blessed that this is happening to me. But I have 2 to 3 people every single week ask me on Instagram, "Hey, what can I do for you?" And I think that's a wrong approach. I tell them, "Hey, listen, thank you, but it's a wrong approach. Think about what are your talents and what are you passionate about." So, for example, if you're a photographer, let's say it's not real estate, but you're a photographer, you have to approach to this real estate investor and say, "Hey, listen, I'm a headshot photographer, right? But I want to start my business about real estate, or I can take your pictures of your rentals." And I'm quietly honest, I've been doing this for a year or a few months. Can I take your picture for free? And then you can be my mentor. You have to create that value instead of me asking you for that. And it could be, for example, I have a realtor. She's my project manager, and she said, "I can do this for you." I have one of my students. She is my bookkeeper. She said, "This is what I can do for you." Instead of asking, "What can I do for you?" Ask them exactly what they need, and maybe they need it, and maybe they don't. But I just feel like a lot of people, and talking about the cup of coffee, this is something that I don't do now because of my time. But people say, "Hell, can I pick your brains with a cup of coffee?" And I'm like, okay, a cup of coffee is $3. Now, what kind of value you can provide for me sitting an hour with you, going to that place? What kind of value? Now, if the person approaches to me and say, "Hey, listen, I have this deal that I want to partner with you. It's a really good deal. These are the preliminary numbers. You want to sit in a cup of coffee with me?" You better believe that I will. I will find the time, right? So you start create the value, but bring something to the table before that person asks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So where are you currently investing? Is it all around where you live, or have you branched out? Kind of where are you looking right now?
So right now, I'm still looking in Connecticut. This is my market. There's about 4 million people here. I invested there's a lot of towns. I invested in 6 towns right now, and I'm looking deal here. And Connecticut is like this boring market, but I really like it. And the reason why is because it's very predictable. And when I say that is in Connecticut right now, we have a population, there's not growing, but there's not declining either. It's like very stuck, right? A lot of investors says, "Oh, you should invest in places where it's growing in population," and I agree with that. But the problem is that you go to places like Phoenix, Austin, Florida, and these markets are oversaturated with investors putting the same offer. So it's harder and harder to get into this market. My market is there's still competition, actually a lot, but there's less competition than this big market. And it's a market that I understand. I understand what the crime is. I understand pretty much everything about the town. And it's very predictable because, again, rent, if you see the trend in rents in 100 years, you can see that the last like 50 years has been going up. In my boring market, that is declining, right? So if it's going up, even in '08, we didn't have a decline in rents. There's something value here. And then when I started, I analyzed that and I'm like, listen, this is the market to be.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And especially, when people start talking about, getting in where population is going, like you said, that is a great idea. But by the time you find out that, oh, the population is booming in these areas and this, that, and the other, like Phoenix and Austin, where I am, by the time you get around to investing in those markets, you're too late. Usually.
I know.
Suddenly you're paying 25% more and you're maybe getting 5% above that, but you're chasing your tail. And I love what you're saying when we talk about the population staying steady. I mean, even some places where it's slightly declining, you can just look at the area and say, okay, it is going down a little bit, but are they doing anything to create jobs? Because there are some places that, maybe it's declining a little bit, but then you see, oh, Amazon's moving in town, or this company's bringing their headquarters there, and that's going to create jobs. I mean, the slow and steady, just 1% a year, and especially, I mean, you look at if you're getting a 1% population increase over even 10 years, I mean, the U.S. isn't growing much right now. I don't know if people have looked.
I know. I totally agree. And one of the things that I also want to share is like in Connecticut, in the Northeast, especially, it's a very old state, which means that a lot of, baby boomers are retiring. Majority of the baby boomers are in the Northeast. So what the problem is that they're retiring to and go to the South, but they're not accounting of all the immigrants are coming here, especially the ones that are not legal. They're not counting the ones that are students. Our universities in Connecticut are growing rapidly because in the Northeast, education is very important. So all this university, I'm 10 minutes from Yale University. They're growing rapidly. So they're not accounting for a lot of people that are moving here. So again, yes, we're losing some baby boomers that probably don't even rent, right? They're going.
They're the ones who own the homes.
They buy a house in Naples and they retire there. They keep their Connecticut place, or maybe they sell it. But it's for me, it's very predictable, and the market right now. To this year over year, the Connecticut market has grown 8 to 10%, where a lot of states have declined. So like, why am I going to invest in other towns because people are telling me to invest in growing population only when I've been investing for almost 7 years and my rents, which that's what matter the most to me, are still going up or they are steady. Why?
And so what price points are you operating in? Are you more in like the mid-range, the upper range, the lower range? Kind of where have you found is your sweet spot for properties?
So in multifamilies on the low end, I have towns where I paid between 200 to 280,000. That's on the low end. On the high end, I'm paying between 350 to 450, and that depends on the town, right? And this is for multifamilies. For single families, we do.
When you say multi, are you talking like 2 to 4 doors, or are you talking 5+?
2 to 4 doors.
Okay.
And in fact, in Connecticut, when you go like 5 above, 5, 6, 7, 10, 12 units, the price point per door doesn't make sense. At least the properties that a lot of people say, oh, the more doors, the cheaper you get. I don't think that's true. I think that it all depends on what is the town, what is the cap rate, what is, all these details, about the property. And in Connecticut, I'm getting a better return on a 2 or 3 families than if I could get in a 5, 6, 7 unit. Is it true that it's easier to manage a 7 unit than having like 2 families or 3 families? Absolutely. Maybe it's easier, but my return and my systems are working. So why I'm gonna go higher than that? That's the main reason why I haven't bought like a 10, 12 unit. It's not because of the money, but it's because I'm getting my good returns in my small multifamilies.
Yeah. And so you mentioned with your properties, the 32 of them, you're managing them yourselves. How are you managing? I mean, I've self-managed. I mean, granted, it was from afar, and it was more time than I wanted to spend because tenants just have questions, and I hated my tenants having my phone number. Absolutely hated it. How are you both managing 32 units and having time to find other deals and having time to actually enjoy life?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I spend about an hour a week on my managing side. And the way that we self-manage is I have one person that her job is to only attend to this management calls, this repairs calls. And what we have trained her to, all the tenant email with the picture, then what is the next step, and what is the next step, and what is the next step. So we have another person that she does the utility setup for when the tenant moves in and out, and then she does the bookkeeping. Okay, we have then another person that does the showings. So those are the things that takes the most amount of times. And this is something that I did at the beginning of my business when I had 10 units. This is something that I started creating it because I knew I was gonna grow. So then that way, what I do is I prepare the lease and I pay contractors. That's the only thing that I do. And the reason why I do that is because it doesn't take that much time and it's very like detail oriented for me to do those things and not delegate. Now, in the future, I am gonna delegate those things, but right now it takes me an hour of my time, and we have about almost 80 tenants, and
Oh,
it's a seamless system that we have.
okay, yeah. So you've basically created a miniature property management company, not a massive one, but a
Yeah.
nice, small, tight knit group that can get you there. How did you? I mean, creating the team is the toughest part. How did you go about finding them? Are you dealing with real estate investors who you met who also do this, or are they just people you've found through job postings who don't have real estate experience? What have you found in terms of finding the right people for this actual process?
I think the best way to find your team is social media, believe it or not. When I say this is all my team members have to come through my Instagram and Facebook. And the way is they want to be around my knowledge. They want to be around, they don't necessarily want to make a lot of money, but they want to be around my knowledge. And I always say that it's better when you having a team member, as long as they're willing to work and they are somehow smart, it's a win-win for me because what this job entails, it's not the hard in the sense of you need to know about rocket science, right? But you have to be willing to work and you have to be willing to make many mistakes because again, at the beginning, and we're still making mistakes and we're learning along the way. But the best way is to social media and not only like pitching the idea of helping you, but letting and try to catch those signs where when they say, hey, when they start asking questions to social media. So for example, the team member came, hey, how you analyze this deal? And when I see someone that has some time and asking a lot of questions, that's the person that I grab and say, hey, how about you want to learn more and you want to get paid because we pay and we pay good. But it's not that it's free, right? Because I don't want to feel that they're doing us a favor. This is a job. That way we have connected with them, and again, it has been a lot of training. It's not easy. It's not like you're gonna find, if you want an A-class person, you need to pay an A-class person. And if you want somebody with a lot of experience, then you have to be paying. So at the beginning, I didn't have that much cash to pay for the property management. Otherwise, I would have just hired a company and be done with it. But I said to myself, let's just create this mini property management, like you call it, Adam. And then let's see if it works. And it's working. In fact, even if you have a property management, you have to manage them anyway. So why not to try to do it yourself for the first, I will say, 10 units, unless you have a job that is like a lawyer or like you're an accountant and you make a lot of money, or you're a doctor, right? If you're in those areas that the best usage of your time is doing the work that make you the most amount of money, I will highly suggest for you to manage your own properties.
Yeah. All right. And give out your social media. You mentioned people following you and asking questions. You want to give out one of your handles or anything for people to follow?
Yeah, of course. So I'm more active on Instagram. My Instagram is Andres Bernal, Andres, and my last name is Bernal. But on Instagram, instead of an L, I have a 1. And you can find me also on Facebook. Just put my name, Andres Bernal, and then you'll find me.
Okay, fantastic. And so, tell me, what would you go back and tell yourself 5, 6, 7 years ago to have put you in a better position today than you are? I mean, you're in a great position today, but if you can go back and tell yourself, a few pieces of advice from 5 or 6, 7 years ago, what would you tell yourself?
Well, first, obvious, buy more real estate, right? But then, I would say my second, I will tell myself my second thing that I will tell myself is to try to find how you're gonna make the deal work. I passed on a lot of great deals that I knew there were good deals back then that I don't own today because of the finances. So whenever you find a good deal, something comes across your table, it is a good deal. Trying to find who is going to help you and trying to find how you're going to make this happen instead of just letting it pass. Because not only if you let it pass, you lose the deal, right? And then but also you don't start your journey. And a lot of people know how to analyze a good deal. They know everything about the deal. They know, but they're afraid to pull the trigger. So because of their scare. So if you're scared, find someone that want to invest with you. They are less scared. Find that person that wants to go with you to experience, to have that knowledge, and then just do it. And if it makes sense in this market at a 7-8% interest rate, it will definitely make sense in a few years once you refinance at a 5%.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you started your journey, we talked about, your first deal. Somewhere along the way, you must have hit a decent bump. You told us about one of your big wins over a cup of coffee, but tell us about one of your failures and about how you were able to continue going even when you were having this failure.
That's a great. So I have a few failures. I always say that if you don't have any failures, then you haven't invested enough, right? So I will say one of my few failures was underestimate the rehab cost. So I bought this 3-family. It was a failure, but I still end up okay. So I bought a 3-family for $180,000, and the renovation cost was $65,000 to $70,000. And that went to a little over 100. I think it was 100, a little bit under 100. So it's a $30,000, let's say $30,000 difference that I end up spending more. And one of the reasons why, when you guys are buying a house that is in distress or they need cosmetic work, make sure that if you don't know what you're doing, you walk with a contractor. And this time, I did that because everything was in a rush. The realtor called me, hey, I have a good deal, but it has to be today. And I rushed it. I had to put an offer today, cash and all that. And that was a big mistake. I should have gone with a contractor and say how much it will cost. What is the worst case scenario? What is the best case scenario? I don't know one person, Adam, that does the rehab cost really well.
I always laugh whenever.
I don't know one person yet.
Yeah, I always laugh when I see these wholesale deals, and they're like, "Oh, just $5,000 to $10,000, fix up, touch up to this, and then it'll be completely rent ready." And I'm just like, you can't do anything for $5,000. Like, what are you just having to just like walk in the door and, paint a wall? What are you thinking actually needs to be done? So I do love it. But I also love what you said at the beginning there, or towards the beginning of it. And it's something that I hear from people constantly when I ask them about, some of the bumps in the road is they say, this was my failure. It was one of the things, but it either worked out or a minimal loss. I mean, yes, there are some times that you can get massive losses, but usually those are on the high end with appreciation plays. But the people who are investing in the right way, doing it smart and analyzing the deal beforehand, if you analyze the deal correctly at the beginning, just number wise, if your rehab goes over, like you were saying, 20, 30 grand, yeah, you're not going to be the most thrilled, but you've limited your downside a whole lot. Just buying correctly. So it's
absolutely. Yeah.
So
in fact, one of the things that I will highly suggest for people to do is to even account if the market crash. And this is something that investors I don't think they're doing. But every deal that I buy for now on, I do believe that we might have a correction this year at 10% in my market. That's just my beliefs. Don't take my advice, but this is what I've studied. But we account even for a 20% crash. Like a correction is 20% or less, crash is 20% or more, let's say. So I account for like 20%. If the market goes down 20%, am I still going to be okay with equity? And even though I invest for a long term, and even though I don't care too much about like the equity, I do care, but I don't care that much unless I'm going to refinance. I tend to, again, put my numbers. I account that as on my calculator as a like cost. Like if the market drops 20%, what's going to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Andres, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming and telling us your story. So tell us, in the next 2 years, what's up for you? Like what are your goals for the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah. So the goal for this year is I have a partner now that I buy all my deals with. Our goal is to create $20,000 on cash flow as a company. So right now we are almost halfway there. And then for the next few years, I think my long-term goal is to own 100 units, no more than that. And have a very good systems where I don't have to, my company doesn't depend on me. That's my main goal. So I spend 1 hour right now, but once I start, having 100 units, it's going to be probably more time. So I'm just going to make sure that it's seamless, that doesn't depend on me. And again, enjoy my rentals for my retirement. Like your podcast.
You're gonna have to grow your property management company when you get up to that 100 units. So
I bet. We're actually growing right now. We're actually hiring. So yes, I completely agree with you.
Nice. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Again, we will post your social media handles in the show notes. So for everybody out there, if you want to start following him and see if you might want to be his next employee, you can head over there and check out what he's doing. For everybody else, if you want to find a turnkey single-family property for yourself, you can head over to renttoretirement.com. You can see our inventory there. You can schedule a call with us. Don't forget, if you want to see Zach's top 20 markets to invest in 2023, you can email a request over to podcast@renttoretirement.com, and we will get that sent over to you. And as always, we have our raffle going on. If you take a screenshot of the review you leave for us on your podcast platform, we will send you a $10 thank you gift card and enter you in a $500 raffle for a closing cost credit. Really appreciate the time you spent educating yourself today, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.
Thanks for watching the Rent to Retirement YouTube channel. Check out some of our other videos, like this one, or this one here.